That's me how I say it.
Yeah, earlier it was pretty hopping too.
Oh, it's same thing with these people.
We're right behind you. We're going to keep you in line. Here you go. His name is Joe Hart. Yeah, it's just to keep she's turning red.
So we're going to get rolling. If everybody out there would like to, in the lobby would like to join us, again, feel free to fill up your cup and grab some snacks. For those of you who I haven't met before, I'm Nancy Turrell. I'm the CEO, Executive Director of Martin Arts, and we're really happy to be here today celebrating the 100th birthday anniversary of Stuart High School, 1923 to 2023. We've had some really great stories and wonderful times learning from some of the alumni earlier this morning, and then from our historian panel, which just finished up. As I think you probably know by now, our dream and vision is to save, preserve, and bring back to life this building as an arts and cultural center for the community, embracing the visual, performing, and literary arts. A lot of what will happen will be bringing the facade outside back to its original state. As it's been an admin center, a lot of those windows and features disappeared. Those will be brought back to the light, if you will. I know we're supposed to talk about sunlight and architecture. I now know. It will really just be a really centerpiece for the community to enjoy the arts as an audience member, or maybe learn a new art form in one of the many classrooms or experiences. And working with children via the school district Boys and Girls Clubs and those many groups in the community that work with children to have classes and opportunities for them, as well as adult learning and places to just congregate and enjoy our community life together. So really with no further ado, I'm going to give the panel over to our moderator, Mr. Ben Masando, who did a great job with the alumni this morning, and I know he wants his panel to exceed the first one. So the challenge is on, and I'll turn it over to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the round of applause for Nancy. Well, it's a pleasure having you all, and thank you very much for taking the time this Saturday to come out. I see some new faces, I see some familiar faces, and what I thought was really great was all the interactions that I heard out afterwards. And one person even said they hadn't seen this many people from times past since probably ever. I think some people haven't seen one another 30, 40 years. But we're all coming together for a great cause, a great mission, and that's to celebrate our history, celebrate our culture, celebrate our tradition, and to do that through preserving the space and making sure that it can be enjoyed for generations to come. And so to do that today, we're going to have some wonderful alum of Stuart High School tell some stories, tell a little bit about themselves. I have the great honor of sitting on this panel with Ms. Gloria F, Nancy King Crawford, Glenn Eckley, and Laura K. Whitaker Darville. I will let them all introduce themselves together. And towards the end of our panel, I will leave us about 10 to 15 minutes of question and answer. So what I'll ask is everyone, I'm sure you all have stories and questions. We'll hold them until the end. I'll make sure to give everyone some time. And we'll also get to, and if I miss anything, I'll make sure that everyone has some time for opening remarks and closing remarks. But to kind of kick us off here, can you just everyone introduce yourselves? We'll start at the end here. Mrs. Fike, introduce yourselves. tell us a little bit about what our mission here of creating awareness and raising support and friends to preserve this space, what that means to you. Tell us a little bit about how your family came to Martin County and what our mission today means to you.
Well, it's something that has been needed for years, and finally, it has come to fruition. I'm so glad that this is happening, and I think that time goes by, more years, there'll be more people interested, and I think that occasions and functions like this one today is so meaningful. And although there isn't a great number of attendants today, this is the way Stuart has always been. It takes a while for something to grow on people. It takes a while for people to get used to the idea. And I don't want anybody to give up just because there wasn't a jocunda amount of people here today. Because I think from here on, and all of us, and my big mouth, and all these other people, that when we talk about this, it will go on for a long time, and it will be a huge success. And I don't know how in the world Martin Arts found this lady. They are so lucky. She is wonderful, and she's done so much. Anyway, now we'll get down to brass tacks. I was born in Stuart. I went to Mrs. Davies Kindergarten. First grade here in a building right over here in the back to the left. Mrs. Purnell was my teacher, and her husband was a highway patrolman here. Then I had Mrs. Lowry, who taught in the system for years. Then I had Eddie Lee Smith for 3rd grade. I had Virginia Dyer Brock for 4th grade. I had Hazel Orman for 5th grade. Alani Urett for 6th grade. And 7th, we had a lot of different teachers. And the last time that I was ever in this building was 1957. The last year of school. I've never been back. And I am so disappointed that this floor is level. Because in the good old days, it was slanted, and of course the stage was up here. Now, what I want to bring up today, I'm probably jumping the gun on the question.
No, don't.
But while it's in my mind, you better let me tell it.
All right.
And this is to do with art, and this is what I remember, and it really left a memory to me. There was an artist by the name of Joy Postel, and she came to Stuart, and she would entertain students. All these classes would fill the auditorium. She would get on the stage with an easel, and she drew pond birds, all kinds of birds and flowers, and as she did it, she sang. And I thought the woman was a lunatic. She was unbelievable, her artwork. And lo and behold, the Citizens Bank of Stuart hired her to do murals on all the walls in the bank. And then the Women's Club, Stuart Women's Club, has murals drawn by Joy Postel. But that just happens to be one of my great memories of this place. And this morning, someone mentioned about a lady who came with an easel, and it was religious, and she talked about the Bible. And I do remember that. It was cloth on the easel, and she would take these pictures of houses and Jesus and different things and stick on this material or carpet. But all of these things had to do with attending this high school, and those are some of the things I remember.
We're going to hear even more stories as we go along, and I thank you so much for sharing that with us. You know, Mrs. Nancy came
not born in Stuart, but I moved here when I was about 2. But my family, my grandparents were here. They had the Pelican Hotel. And so I grew up in this building, you might say. And I just remember I was first through the 12th grade here. And I had some of the same teachers that Gloria did. We all did. And everything happened in this room as far as even community. It wasn't just high school things that went on. If there was concerts, they happened here. If anything that happened in this community was right here in this building. Plus football and basketball and all of that. And I just know I don't want to see it leave the community because there's so much to offer here. And I hope that they'll continue to have the arts here. And there was always things that went on in this building that we aren't even going to tell you about.
Don't start stealing my script now. Mr. Eckley, tell us about your family, how they ended up here in Stuart, and what this project means to you.
I don't know much about the project. I'll tell you a little bit about what happened to me in this building and this school. I moved here, my family moved here from California in 1956, and that's the year I started the 7th grade. So I was in this school, in fact, on this floor, my first day at school in 1956, and I graduated in 1962. I was class president my sophomore and junior year, and the student body president the senior year. So I got to know not only my classmates, but a lot of the teachers. I also played 4 sports, and the only reason I bring that up, first of all, by playing 4 sports doesn't mean I was good at anything. There's a well-known politician in town, I won't mention his name, we're still friends, but I was going to the Republican Party for something when I first retired from the Navy, and he introduced me as the worst basketball player in the world, and I couldn't argue with him.
That's not true.
Joe remembers.
No,
There's
I
a lot
was
of
back
my
in
classmates.
That's not true.
And Laura Kay's sister is the same age as me. Like I said, we knew each other then, we know each other now. We've remained friends. Probably the most important thing as far as being in this school is when you think about it, you were here from 1st grade through senior. I was here from 7th grade through 12th, so it was for 6 years. 6 years is a pretty good chunk. If you think back, most people don't go to a school for 6 years in the same place, but we did. And we knew the same teachers, and we saw them. Even when we were little kids in the 7th grade, we'd look up to the seniors that were in the 12th grade. So, and we still know them to this day. We can remember who was playing ball, who didn't, things like that. I think of the relationships that you have as one of the important things. Also, I mentioned playing ball in all those sports. You go to all the schools in the area, and we were in the Suncoast Conference, I believe it was. It changed a couple of times. But we played every school from Pompano down south all the way to Titusville up north. And also the Glade School, Clueston, Okeechobee, Belglade, Pahokee. And I know that in your previous board, I got the end of it, they were talking about the architecture in this building and the front buildings. They were all built when I got here. But we also had that gym out there, that wooden gym, very tiny. It was so small, you didn't have you had a half court line, but you also had 2 more half court lines. Because once you went past half court, then it expanded to the next one. It's a little hard to explain. We had special rules in all the other schools. We'd drive them nuts. But we'd go around, and you'd think we had also one of the wealthiest communities in the United States at Jupiter Island. we still had to dump for a gym. And I'm telling you, those schools in Pahokee and in Belle Glade, they had gorgeous gyms in schools. And you think, boy, that must mean they're a lot better than us. But I gotta tell you, I ended up, after graduating, I went to the University of Florida for 5 years to get a degree in engineering. I then worked for IBM and at Cape Kennedy for on the Saturn V project between my 4th and 5th years, and then after I graduated. And the reason I bring that up is I always felt like, well, that little dinky school, I'm not going to be able to match up with all the other folks. I had no problems at all. And the reason wasn't because we had a lousy gym or didn't have a pretty gym or anything like that. It's because we had really good teachers. And that played an important part of me growing up, and a lot of our classmates, and I'm sure if you sit down with them, they'll tell you we had some really great teachers. So anyway, after I finished high school, I then went to the University of Florida for 5 years, like I said, and then there was a recruiter on campus in Gainesville, had a nice white uniform, said, oh, I like that white uniform. So, like an idiot, I signed up. 24 years later, I retired.
Well, thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service. And Miss Laura K. Whitaker Darwin. She said that. So the Whitaker name is a very famous name in our community, and we have a special connection. I went to school at University State College. And frankly, I probably would have graduated college if it wasn't for this lady here. She was a tutor there. I'm telling you, helped me, and so what does tell us about how your family came to the community and what this project means to you.
Okay, my grandfather was, and his 3 kids, 3 boys, my dad was the oldest, they lived in New Jersey year round, but during the winter time it got really cold, and all my grandfather could do was oystering, and he said, this is awful because of the cold weather, and they were out on the boats, and so somebody told him, there's a place in Florida, Stuart, Florida, it's just absolutely the ideal place to go, and you can throw your hooks out and you'll have a boatload by 10 o'clock in the morning. And so that next winter, my grandfather packed up the family and they came here, and they were actually snowbirds the whole time my dad was growing up. And they came here in 1917. My dad was 6 years old. He lived in Stuart 100 years because he lived until he was 106. And so they built up the boat building industry, and then that, became kind of well known. They did the fishing first. But anyway, that's how they came here. I was born here in the little hospital and grew up here. It was a wonderful place to grow up. Started 1st grade, like Gloria said, over next door, but we had to eat lunch here. The cafeteria was in the basement, and one of the things I haven't been down in the basement to see, but because the floor sloped way down, the cafeteria had a very low ceiling. It was a scary place. And when you went in there to eat lunch and went through, and we had trays, and little portions on your trays. And the teachers would stand there, and you were supposed to eat everything on your plate. And I think it was Dale said they served green beans all the time. With me, it was stewed tomatoes. I hated tomatoes. So you learn to get plenty of napkins and wrap it. Because otherwise you couldn't have dessert if you're playing But anyway, yeah, so even in 1st grade, we were in this building. And then in 7th grade, like everybody said, we came here for 7th grade. When I got here in 7th grade, the outer buildings were not finished, and so pretty much, except for a couple out buildings in back, which was shop and some of the others, everybody 7th grade through 12th grade, everybody went here. And so my memory of people like Mary and Nancy being the older kids, Dale was gone by then, I think. But by them being the older kids, it was one of my good memories. You wanted us to do that later, didn't you?
No, that is a good time.
Anyway, one of my fun memories is the staircases.
Okay.
Because, of course, no elevators, obviously. And so to change classes, 1 year, or I don't know how long it lasted, you had to go up one staircase and down the other staircase.
Okay.
And so every once in a while, kids would get mischievous, and they'd, literally go up the down staircase. But the big thing when there were two lines, one going up on the inside and one coming down on the outside, you'd see these kids, and it was so exciting if one of the older kids would say hi to you.
So with being part of this community, my family is originally from South Africa. We came to Stuart, Florida in 1992. I grew up here, so I'm one of those other local yokels. And so as your families have come and gone and you've seen different changes in the communities, what were some of the things that you valued the most, like looking back at your time here at school? Whether it might have been your favorite teacher or some interesting stories or a moment that you had here in this building that you remember quite well. Is there any takers, any interesting memories, something heartfelt, or like, who was your best friend? Let's make it easier. Who was some of your friends that you remember when you were here? We started down there. We'll come down here. We'll start down here. We'll go there. Tell us about some of your friends and some of your most heartfelt memories here in this space.
Well, some of my friends were like Phyllis Beavis, Kay Hudson, Susan Hall, Mary Lyons. Mary Lyons' father was the editor of the Stuart News, and he was really neat. Susan's parents had an appliance store downtown. Everybody was very integrated in the community, and but anyway, as far as favorite memories, when you look back, as far as the school, it was just probably the normal memories you have when you're in high school. Who's going with who, and that sort of thing. That's very important, not as much as the studies at the time, but I remember Dale Clark was a history teacher, and he could tell stories about different historical things. I did not like history, it was not my best subject, but I liked listening to him. And anybody remember Mr. Blizzle?
Oh, pal.
Okay, we got to hear Mr. Blizzle. That was a very visceral response. That was nothing. So tell us about this teacher.
We made his, well, we can't tell you everything. We made his life miserable. Yeah, we really did. Yeah, I don't know if I can.
We'll be kind to him. We'll be kind to him. So we'll go under you. So who were some people that you remember fondly?
Well, my best friend was Barry Ulick. There's a lot of them were around. Barry and I were close. One of my favorite stories is his family had a house out on US 1 where it went down there where the curve was and split, and then it was 2-lane all the way to Fort Pierce. And his house, they eventually made it into a veterinarian. I think Best Buy is out there now. Before it was all just nothing but plain old dirt. And Barry was kind of a funny guy.
Okay.
And one of the things that he liked to do was either I had an apple on my head or he had an apple on his head. We had a bow and arrow. We'd wait for some tourists to come by and see how bad. But that's there. But I remember a lot of very good teachers. And Mr. Clark was one of my favorites. And I think my favorite was the algebra teacher.
Buddy Wells.
Buddy Wells.
Yes.
Well, one of the teachers that we all wanted to have, maybe not when you all were there, was Mr. Angel. Because he was so good looking. everybody wanted to go to biology class. Mr. Angel was there. But we had some really good teachers. Danny Jackson was one of them, and Mr. Smouse, and we just really, Mrs. Reardon, we could get her to talk on something else besides history. We kept her busy, not on the subject that she was supposed to be on. But we just had a really good time. We were not just friends with our classmates. We were sort of a whole group of kids, no matter what grade you were in. You were still friends with them, and you know, did things with them. So, in fact, I married one of them.
Married your high school sweetheart.
Well, he wasn't my high school sweetheart. He was just a friend in the group that we
Oh.
all hung around together, and I didn't start going with him until I went to college, and ended up marrying him. So, but it was a wonderful experience growing up here in this school and everything.
That's great.
And we had some good times. We didn't, sports-wise, we weren't the best football team, but the big rival was Fort Pierce. And we wanted to beat Fort Pierce. And so my junior year, we tied them 0-0.
They lose.
Real win. And so we decided we were gonna paint it on the back of the gym.
Okay.
So we got the paint, it was at night, and we got onto the football field, and here comes the sheriff. And wanted to know what we were doing. And we said, well, we came to paint the score on the back of the gym. And he said, that's all right, you go ahead and do that. I'm here to find out who's cycling the gas out of the buses. So he was back in the gym. So.
Listen, that's a good story. That's a good story.
We had some good times, whether we won or lost, and we always, log cabin, we always had a dance after the football games. And we always had a parade before the football games that went through downtown Stuart and came around and everything. And my husband was, not my husband at the time, but he played the drums. And when they would get to the Lyric Theater, the drummers would run to the other side, so there was no beat going around. We had some good times.
That's good. And Ms. Frank.
Well, I think it was a combination. We had great teachers and great friends. And I have to say that I had some of the greatest friends because everybody has the most embarrassing moment in their life. Well, I had mine. My sister and I stole a boat and ran away from home. And when we were found, it was in the morning. My mother made us go to school as soon as we could get cleaned up and dressed. I've never been so embarrassed in my whole life. I did not want to go to school. There was an old dirt road out here between here and the middle school. And the garbage cans were all along there, and that's where the buses went. She drove up, and I hid behind the garbage can. When my mother left, she stopped and waved me to get in the school, get in. Finally, she drove off, and I came in. I was so embarrassed. Went to my first class, and everybody cheered. They were so happy, and I felt so good. And I'll never forget. I mean, that is true friends. But anyway, we did have a lot of great teachers. And of course, we had a great principal, John C. Gray. And he and I shared the same birthday. Anyway, I think that today, by doing this little group and hearing all these stories, I just hope that it will encourage everybody here to realize the importance of people getting together and getting together for all kinds of art. You know, I think this was such a great idea, and let's move forward.
This
Carry the message.
This has been a lot of fun for me, learning so much about how this community is built and the different stories and the different characters. And I've heard some of these names now, to actually meet people and see, you know, the real life connection. It's really something very special. So now at some point in time, I'm sure we may have left or stayed, but Mrs. Crawford, so after you graduated high school, where did life take you, and how did you end up back here in Stuart? Or did you just stay here in Stuart the whole time?
Well, after I graduated here, I went to Florida State.
Right, I'm sure there's some Knowles fans here.
And they're playing right now.
Please, no one tell us the scores.
And I was in the circus there.
Wow.
But I was also studying to be a teacher. So I came back after I graduated, and I taught here for 35 years in the elementary.
Wow. What grade did you teach?
I taught third and second.
Okay.
And I actually taught in Palm City. I didn't teach in Stuart School, but I did intern here. But I was a teacher along with all my teachers that I'd had in school, which was really neat. Because they were all still here, so it was nice. And they really helped me.
That's truly a history full circle. That's really special.
You're missing a hell of a game.
Don't be that guy. Security. Escort this jump. Security. But tell us about. So you went into the military and you served our country. Thank you for your service. And then what brought you back to Stuart and back to Martin County?
I retired after 24 years, and I was going to retire in Hawaii. I really liked it there. But my parents had gotten older, and they came back. They'd moved around quite a bit. Both of them had worked for the Stuart News for quite a while. But they retired to Indiantown, so I wanted to be close to them. So I ended up coming back here, and that's the way we made my life.
Oh, good. Now, Ms. Whitaker, after high school, where did life take you?
I went to the University of Florida.
Go Gators.
Back then, you kind of had two choices, FSU or University of Florida. And actually, the guy I was dating at the time went to University of Florida, as well as quite a few other people from our class.
We referred to them as Florida State College for women.
FSU used to be just for women.
No rivalry here, right?
Some things never change.
So after I graduated, and I became a teacher too, I became a high school math teacher. And I spent 2 years in Fort Lauderdale, 2 years in Denver, Colorado, and then I came back here, and I taught here at the high school that was out there by then. You know, but this was no longer the high school. But I taught out there for 10 years, moved to Kentucky for 24 years, and then, kind of like Glenn, my dad said one day, you know, have you ever thought about moving back? And I thought, well, maybe it's time. And like Glenn said, it was a terrific decision. It was an absolutely great decision to move back. And I'm actually living in the house that my dad built and that they lived in. So that's kind of nice.
Well, so I graduated back in 04, and so various kind of my cohort, we had the Great Recession. So the Great Recession brought a lot of us back. We just didn't have jobs in other places, and so we were here. So because of that, we really kind of began to populate downtown quite a bit and see some different landmarks and see some different, we really made Martin County our home. And sometimes people say, well, we're trying to get out of Martin County. I'm not gonna lie, I was 17, I want to get out of Martin County. And I ended up in Missouri, and then then winter hit, and I was like, I'm going back to Martin County. so while we're here, I know my generation has a responsibility to begin to plant seeds for the future and to really make this our own community and to make it special. So I'd love to see this building and part of what we're doing be here for 100 years. And so if you had the opportunity To come back 100 years from now, what would you love to see in this, as how this building has matured and how we preserved it and how we're continuing to use it? And with a lot of the funds that we're raising and specifically with the arts component, what would that mean? What would that mean to you if you could come back and see this building 100 years from now preserved and knowing that people today made decisions? I'm going to start here in the middle. How would it feel to you to know that 100 years from now this building is still around, people are still using it, and it's a pillar of the arts?
I would hope that it happens, of course. And I also hope that they keep that, what we used to think was a silly rule about 4 stories.
Yes.
Let's keep it that, don't go up higher than that, because you can see the problems you got to the north and south. But, and they also did a great job, I thought, with the old courthouse. When they converted that, they did, and that's going to be around for a long time. They just added a little bit to gazebo and things like that. But, this is the ideal location in the middle of town. And we all, the people that went to school here, all remember this building.
Mrs. Berger, how would it make you feel if we could preserve this and it be around for another 100 years?
Well, I think it'd be great, of course. I think any of us that have a special tie to it, whether you went to school here or whether you've come in for some reason or your family has, that would be great. And I belong to the Martin Artisans Guild, so having an art component would be fabulous. I think having opportunities for artist studios, because it'd be really neat if you had a community of different artists that could kind of work together, and also culturally maybe have, I don't know whether this is, they made it so small compared to the auditorium. Of course, when you're little, things look bigger. But if there could be different events held here. I mean, this has become a really nice feel to the area. I just went in the women's restroom and I was like, wow, that's changed much for the better. But this is just a place that would be just nice to have people coming and going, and a lot of events going here. I would like to see it somehow reasonably available.
Right.
Because if you have venues, but it's really, really expensive, then it's harder to get a lot of people to, a lot of participation on a long-term basis. I don't know how that would work, because I know you have to keep the doors open, but I just think having it utilized would be fabulous.
And how about you, Mrs. Frank? How would it make you feel to know?
100 years from now, I'm hoping that all the efforts of all the people that are involved, I hope to see a central location for the arts. I think it's, like I said before, it's something that's been needed for a long time, and I think it will happen. It's going to take a while, but we need it, we really do. Because now we have little art associations and groups that are scattered all over. And I think to have one central place is a perfect idea.
How about you, Ms. Brooke? How would it make you feel?
I hope that they can bring in people that really hadn't been here, hadn't grown up here, but this was a central location for everything that happened when we were growing up. I mean, the town people had bands here that played, plays that came in, and I'm hoping that, that will continue, that there will be entertainment here for people, as well as, and encourage people to have functions here, that can afford to have functions here. And so I hope they keep it up, and I hope in 100 years that somebody hasn't mowed it down for an apartment.
So we've shared some stories and had some laughs, and I know some of you, this has spurred some ideas, and some of you. So are there any questions for the panel right now, or any thoughts, or anything you'd like to share? So when you ask you, please do me a favor, stand up, state your name, and ask the question, please.
My name is Chris Gonzalez. I'm president of the Barn Theater. How many students did you all have here? What was the enrollment?
My class was, when I graduated, 44.
Mine was 62.
And then mine was, I think, 77.
And mine was, it was around 120. And each of the classes, of course, got.
In 65, I think we had
Hey, Kate,
147.
could you do me a favor, could you stand up and state your name, please?
I'm Carol Walker, I was Carrollton Brady, and I think in 1965 we had 147.
And this was the only school in the county, the only high school.
White.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
And I-
right,
I-
I'm sorry, yes, you're right.
I will get to that.
Yeah, and I
No,
going to
for
talk
sure.
about it.
Yes, sir.
I'm Dale Hudson, I was in class of 52, but we had 29 graduating.
Is there anyone else or any other thoughts or questions? You know, there's oftentimes pivotal moments that happen while we're in school. And I'll come back around if anyone has any other thoughts. So for me, 2001 was a pivotal moment. I still remember I was in biology class, and 9/11 occurred. And there's different pivotal moments throughout your life. So one of which was the time of integration. How did that experience shape you being around that time, and also kind of the climate in the community? The last panel shared their ideas. So anyone can start who would like? Yes, sir.
Yeah, like I said, I graduated in 62, and this school was all white. And I believe it was 64 when they first had the first ones. I went to the University of Florida at the time. I could be wrong on this, but I believe there were 13 blacks when I went. And when I graduated in 67, there were about 200. So we had virtually no blacks in our schools. A lot of my classmates, this is during the Vietnam War, and a lot of the males ended up getting drafted or joined the military. And that's the first time a lot of us were exposed to being around blacks and realizing that they're not any different than we are, especially when people are yelling at you for doing stuff that you don't want to do. But it was a big change, and I think from all indications that I had from talking to my friends, the transition here in town, and these guys over here can know much better than me, but the transition went rather smoothly. I don't think we had many problems at all.
No, it was very easy.
And that had a lot to do with both the white and the black.
Exactly.
Well, our school, I can remember, we never had to bus because Doc Smouse knew ahead that we were going to be integrating. And so he opened the schools so you could go to any school you wanted to. So that's sort of how they integrated. So there was not a problem here. We didn't have any busing, we didn't have any problems like that.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, when I was in high school, and the two schools were separated, but as was mentioned this morning, on the other side of our football field almost was Stuart Training School. And I can remember we both had band practice at the same time, and their band was much more with it than I was, that's for sure. They had a good band and it was fun to listen to, but when I heard that the integration process was gonna take place, I was really worried, not for anything other than we just had not had that happen before, so we didn't know how it was gonna happen, and everything you read in the news blew it up as such a big, huge problem, which it was in a lot of places, and how people were so mean and, Rosa Parks and all of that. And I was so afraid that that was gonna happen in our community. I was not here then because, I was away. But I heard that things went very well, and that made me feel really good. And
Well, I know our community is very unique in a number of ways, and being able to even fill this room with so many people who care. Not every community has this privilege to do something like this. So I really appreciate your guys' candor and perspective on this. I'm very grateful for Martin Arts and what Martin Arts has done, and arts oftentimes us together. And now I understand this is a stage. Now, did any of you happen to perform on this stage for one reason or another? All right, so what was the occasion?
Well, we always had a senior play.
Okay.
And so we performed on this stage. And anything, even in the second grade, the rhythm band performed on this stage. Mrs. Lowry's rhythm band. So everything happened on this stage in our community. And,
Yeah, we still had a senior play when I was a senior, and it was only seniors.
yes.
And the second act of the play, or the second night, it only ran 2 nights. The second night of the play, I can't remember what it was, and Boo probably would because he was in the play too. But we went off script and caused the play director to have a little moment of panic. But then we went back on script. But yeah.
What was the play?
And,
What was the play?
Stand up.
A Diet of Dates. The name of the play was A Diet of Dates.
Oh, how did that happen?
So you guys
I
stand
have
up,
a
let us know.
question. Was the stage this original size?
No, it was bigger.
No.
No,
It
there
was
was a
higher.
back, it was much bigger.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
that's what I thought.
Well, the floor was lower, see?
Okay.
Yeah,
So
So
the
the-
floor went from here and
Seats.
gradually
Yeah.
went up.
It was on a
So the
big
stage.
slant.
So it was
This was the high part. And you walk, see how that slant is there?
yeah, yeah.
That continued.
To go down like
Go down.
That gives me, there was a question I was asked, in the other panel that reminded me of, so thank you so much for that question. Can you tell us how things were configured on each floor as you remember it? So like what was on the third floor? Can you start on the
Okay.
third floor going down as you
Right,
remember
the
it?
third floor housed the library.
This is Europe.
And my biggest and most vivid memory, I'm sure you all know who Jim Hutchinson is, a local painter. There was on the north wall, the whole wall was a giant picture. It was a map of the world. And where Florida was, and Stuart, Jim Hutchinson had Hutch with a circle and some lines in it. And he wrote that all over everywhere, but I'll never forget seeing that for years. And I've wondered if it was still there or if it's covered with sheetrock.
Well, as the school grew, I had 5th and 6th grade in the basement here.
Okay.
And it was split class because we were getting more kids, I guess. And so we had more than one class of each grade level in elementary. So I had 5th and 6th grades in the basement. So I really thought, boy, I'm up. But I guess we had classes 2nd floor, 3rd floor.
Yeah.
It just depended on, where your class, we had classes outside, in the buildings outside. So
Right.
we were
Temporary
kind of
buildings.
all over the school.
Also on the first deck, they had over there, Mrs. Bridges, was that with the book
Oh,
distribution?
down
Yeah.
over there,
The
in the
book.
corner,
Over there?
in that northeast corner.
And then across from her was the office, and then next to, that was the big office, and then next to that was Doc Smouse's office. As student body president, I had to spend my last period every day with him. Oh yeah, you think you're a big deal? Well, we'll find out. You're not. And then I think,
The offices were downstairs.
yeah, that's what I was talking about.
And there was a teacher's lounge.
That where
Remember?
there was, and they all smoked in there.
Yep. And smoke would come under the door, you could see it.
Smell it.
And there were screen doors to go into the lunchroom, you remember? Black screen doors.
There's
Well,
no
there
air
was
conditioning.
no air, there were no fans.
And they had basically no heat. We had those stoves
Yes.
for heat, and if it got really cold, they
We
put us
had
all
wood
in buses,
stoves.
have us go in buses that they parked on the football field.
Well, there was no, there was
Excuse me,
no.
I wanted to understand, so you're saying if it was cold,
Really cold.
they put you in a school bus,
To sit where you could they would warm up with the sun.
oh, and
On
you're,
the football
and you're conducting class.
They were, yeah.
Really?
Well, there was
It
no,
wasn't that many times that they
I was
got
gonna
that
say.
cold. It was very rare.
there was no heat in this
Hold on,
building.
we want to make sure everyone can still hear.
Yeah.
So you were
There
saying?
was no heat in this building,
Right.
and because it was a fire hazard by then.
Right.
Said. So, as girls going through here, we could not wear pants, we had to wear dresses. So our class made pantaloons
Oh, okay.
underneath, and we put bells on them. So when the classes changed, all these bells were. And Mr. Gray was very upset.
You got upset a lot of times.
Yeah.
In elementary school,
Mhm.
most all the classes were out there in these outbuildings. We literally had wood stoves that they put pieces of wood in.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. They had them up here, on this level.
Yeah, we had them up here too.
Up here.
You did?
Yeah.
Yes,
absolutely.
and sometimes somebody would get the idea if you put an eraser
Oh, yeah.
or a rubber band on them, that created a smell that was awful.
You know, you gotta love that kids have always been the
Yeah,
same.
I know.
You gotta get, I thought it was just my crew making
Yeah.
mischief.
Our class put Limburger cheese in there.
See, you all turned out all right. So with our last few minutes here, I want to give everyone maybe 2 or 3 minutes to just share some closing remarks, anything that's on your heart regarding Martin Arts, our project to try to preserve this space and make it create a larger cultural arts presence in the community, or anything you'd like to share to us all here with your last 2 or 3 minutes. So we'll have the gentleman go last, but we'll have the let's here go first.
Well, I was thrilled when I first heard from either Nancy or Jennifer Hearn that, you know, this was something that was going to be tackled, because being my high school, I just thought it was absolutely super. And I'm still thrilled. And I went to one of the tours one time and walked through here, and it was just so neat to just walk through here and try and remember, well, that was where I had class with Mr. Blizzle. That's where I had class with, and remember the things that went on. Plus, with the tie-in with the arts, I was very, very excited that the arts community was trying to expand and be more encompassing. I think there'll be so many more opportunities for individuals and groups, and so I just think it's just marvelous. And to utilize a building that's been here and is part of Martin County is so much better than to tear it down and then build something up.
I understand. That's right.
I hope that everybody here today will leave here and spread the word. Hearing from us how much we really care about this building and some of the experiences that we've all shared here, that we have shared with you. So spread the word.
Yes.
Well, we have to get what we call the new people to get involved, because some of the original people are going. And have gone, and don't realize what this means. But in any community, your older buildings have to have a meaning, because the architect is there, the architecture of the building, and the history. And Stuart seems to be wiping out our history, and we don't want to see that happen. So, and to make it a cultural center for everybody to be able to use and share, I think is wonderful.
Sir?
I picked up the end of the panel that was just before us, the architecture. The people there were talking about this specifically. And one of the comments was raising money. And there's a lot of money in this county, and a lot of it's not where you would think it'd be. I mean, there's people that have a lot of money, and all you have to do is ask them. And if you ask them in the right way, and these people like she and her sister get you to give stuff. And if you do that, I look at the Oceanographic Society and Historical Society, all this other stuff. I mean, it's amazing. It doesn't take that much, and you can raise millions and millions of dollars. And I think that's part of it.
Well, I thank you all for sharing your stories and sharing this hour with us, giving some laughs and some great stories. And I want to thank you all again for attending and being a part of this activities. Thank you to the Martin Arts for all your work and your leadership and the vision that we've had here. What we're undertaking today, truly, it's a project of significance in both what we do in terms of legacy of the community, but also it's a heavy lift. But many hands makes light work, and let's go spread the good word and good news and everything else about what we have here. And please stay a little bit. We have some refreshments still. Stay in fellowship, share some more stories. I believe there's an exhibit. So
Eat cake, please.
So I had my piece of cake, but if you want to leave the cake for me, I won't be angry. But if you head out these doors, and down here there's an exhibit, it'll show more education about the space, both in the past and in the future. I believe over here there's a slideshow. If you go outside, back here there's a slideshow. You can sit and learn some more there as well. And if you'd like to get a tour, there's, I believe on that back wall, you can sign up for a tour at different times. You can also have your organized, maybe your men's club, your women's club, your church, whatever, your fellowship, to come and do a tour to get a better understanding of what we're all doing here. We've had a fantastic day of panels and a fantastic day of education. I'm really humbled to have been your moderator. Thank you for having me. I hope you all drive safe and have a great time and have a great Saturday afternoon. Is any other things for the good of the order? Yes?
You were amazing.
I had a good time. I had a very good time. I was a little nervous. I hope I didn't shake too hard. So you please stand. I'm sorry, Ms. Ross, I should ask you to stand. Could you please stand and state your name?
Okay.
So please stand and state your name.
Linda Gibson, and I remember the first thing every morning at homeroom, we had prayer and saluted the flag.
That's right. It's consistent thing. Well, I'll let you all go. Thank you so much. Please stay in fellowship.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. You did
And if there are any other alumni in the room right now, if you would join us on the front porch for a photo, that would be amazing.